Bob is going to talk to us about continuous delivery in Azure Web Apps. As well, are you going to talk about your end unit work, or?
I'm not going to talk about my end unit work.
Okay, so Rob is one of the, were you one of the founders?
No, I'm not one of the founders, but I'm the current lead.
Current lead of NUnit, one of the main testing frameworks in .NET. So if you have NUnit questions, or want to do TDD, or any of that kind of stuff, you can ask Rob as well, because Rob is well versed in that as well. But today he's going to be talking about, yeah, exactly. He's going to be talking about CD for Azure Web Apps. So please give Rob a warm welcome.
Okay. So far today we've been talking about what Azure can do for you, but you need to get your code up to Azure in order to be able to run it as a web app. The easiest way to start with that is right-click Publish, but I'm going to show you various stages of continuous integration, continuous deployment that you can do with Azure Web Apps. So the different ways that you can get your code up to Azure Web Apps. So, if you want to get in touch with me, my Twitter handle is rkraus. I'm rkraus pretty much everywhere on the internet. There's my email if you have testing questions or any questions on what we talked about today. And my blog is algorithm.net. Okay, so the easiest way to get a web application or a REST API up on an Azure web app is to use right-click Publish from Visual Studio. You can actually do this from Visual Studio Code also. So I've got here, I'm using GitHub in this demo for the source control provider. I just want to show you that you don't need to be using Visual or Microsoft's tools. It works with Visual Studio Team Systems, which is Microsoft's source control system, but it also works with Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab, wherever your source is hosted, this will work for you. Okay? I'm currently developing in Visual Studio, but once again, you can be using Visual Studio Code, you can be using IntelliJ, or your editor of choice.
As long as it's in a Git repo of some sort.
There's actually ways, it's pretty much Git repos, yes. But you could also, they actually allow you to deploy from OneDrive.
Yeah, I saw that. Dropbox.
Okay, if you're using Dropbox for your source control system, we should probably have a talk. All right? Okay? And so this is, to start with, this is the easiest way to provision a web app. If you're in Visual Studio, you can right-click Publish, and it will create your web app, it'll create the database in the back end, it'll automatically deploy your code. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but I will show you where it is. Well, there we go. So I've got Visual Studio here. This is the application I'm going to be demoing today. I'm demoing a ASP.NET Core MVC application. Once again, Microsoft's about any platform. You could be based on Linux. You could be uploading a Node.js application. It could be a Go application. Python, they support it all. I'd be surprised if there's platforms that you couldn't do this with. All right? This is very small, but I'm going to just try and magnify this.
So no reels.
Windows plus stretch. There we go. Okay, so I've just got one. I have one here, web application. I have integration tests for my application, and I have unit tests for my application. I write a test framework, so I do testing. Okay. So the way you do it is you just right-click, you hit Publish, and this is going to go over here. Now I already have it set up, but if I created a new profile, it'll say use an existing resource group in Azure, use an existing web app in Azure, or I can create new ones. If my application, which this one is using a database, let's just go minus again. Minus, there we go. If this application is using a database, which this one is, it'll automatically provision SQL Azure for you in the background. And it will deploy all of your code. It will build and deploy all of your code to Azure. You'll be up and running with an Azure web app in minutes. Okay? Any questions on that so far?
So will it also create app service plan automatically?
Yep. It will create or use an existing.
No.
Yeah, it does everything for you. It's the best way to, in my opinion, especially to wire everything together, right, for you. And the great thing is, if you use a resource group and it's not quite the way you wanted it, you can delete it, start again, super easy. All right, I'm going to go back to my demo, or to my slides, right here. Okay, so the normal workflow with this is developer does some changes, they're doing pull requests up to GitHub. I hope you're doing pull requests and, you're doing code reviews and everything's being tested and all. And then the developer, whenever they want to deploy, would right-click and deploy it to Azure. Now, you can probably think of a few problems with this. All right? We've got multiple developers on the team now. One developer doesn't have latest from master and right-clicks and overwrites some stuff that's already there. So somebody else has to go and deploy again, right? Or we've got a junior developer. They haven't fully tested their code. They deploy their code to Azure and to the production website, and it breaks the website. Okay? The other problem with this is it gives your developers direct access to the production website. Certain companies, it's not a good thing. There's certain ISO certifications that would break. And so on.
But it is not simple procedure to make a dummy website where you practice and test there until it's good. I mean, it sounds like a trivial problem to solve.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
And so that's why I would say, friends don't let friends right-click publish. All right? That's not my term. I came from another MVP, but I'm stealing it. All right? So basically, it's a good way to get started. It's a good way to provision the environment, but you don't want this to be part of your regular development practices. All right? Maybe if you're your personal website, your blog, but even there, it's so easy to set up a full CI/CD pipeline that why not, right? So Azure has something called continuous deployment. So this is a low-road way of doing it. So basically, we're using the same workflow here, where I'm a developer, I'm doing pull requests to Azure. The pull requests get merged to master. So master is the main branch of development for anybody who doesn't work with Git. And master automatically gets deployed to the web app. This is super easy to set up. All right, so I'll just take you over to an Azure web app and show you how you would set this up. I'm not going to fully set it up, but here we go. So this is, just to start with, this is the simple application. It's just an ideas app. You can add a new idea, edit them, that sort of stuff. Very, very simple web application. This is where it's going. It's going to ideawebproduction.azurewebsites.net. I'm not paying for a domain for a demo. Okay? So this is Azure. This is the web app. This was created with right-click publish. If I come back out, right-click publish created almost all of these things for me. The only thing it didn't create is the staging server, which we're going to get to in a second. So you can see it created a database for me, it created the service plan for me, and it created the web app for me. So I come back in to the production web app. I hope I do. There we go. And I scroll down, and there's a whole section on deployment here. So if you're new to this, you can go into the quick start, and you'll notice they've got documentation in here, if it ever comes up. I might need to switch to my phone's internet. Okay, we'll skip the quick start since it's not loading, but it's basically got help for deploying a Node.js app, deploying a Python app, deploying an ASP.NET Core app, and so on. So that's where you can find all the information. Under deployment credentials, if I just want to be FTPing up my website, I can do that. This is where you would set up the FTP credentials. I prefer not to FTP up my stuff, for the same reason I wouldn't right-click publish, right? So if I come down to deployment options, this is where we would set up this continuous automatic deployment of master. I would come in here, I would configure the settings, and notice I can, as I said before, we have Dropbox, we've got OneDrive. So you could build your software and drop it on OneDrive and it'll automatically get updated. Probably not a great idea, maybe for your personal website. But we've got Visual Studio Team Services, which is Git from Microsoft. We've got a local Git repository, we've got GitHub, we've got Bitbucket. So this will allow you, for these external repositories, they'll allow you to use things like GitLab or other third-party Git hosts. And then if I just click on one of these, it'll just go to GitHub. I'm already logged into GitHub in Azure. My accounts are linked. This will take a while. And I just choose the repository. So I choose the project, choose the branch I want to deploy. Maybe I'm only deploying my release branch. Maybe I'm deploying, and so on.
When you configure this, does it automatically, is it set up to receive a webhook? So when I merge to that branch, the deploy happens automatically? Or is it just constantly checking for updates on a time?
I think it does a webhook depending, I think if you choose GitHub or BSTS, I'm pretty sure there's a webhook.
Okay.
If you're using just external repository, it obviously doesn't know the backend system, right?
That makes sense.
So I'm not going to finish setting this up. Let's go back to slides, and then I'll tell you why. This isn't necessarily the best way to do it. This works, all right? This is great, especially if you've got a static website. The problem with this is it can't do complicated builds. It's not running your tests. So unless you've got a very simple website, this probably isn't going to work for you, okay? So we're going to go on to the next step. Oh, one other serious problem is because we're not doing tests, anything that's getting deployed just gets deployed directly to your production website. So there's one other thing that we can do. So this would be the next step, and this is something you want to do pretty much for any website, is you can deploy to staging instead. All right? And so what web apps have they're called slots. And so you've got your production website, and then you can have a staging website, and you can even have a QA website. They're each slots in the Azure Web App. All right? And so what this would do would allow you, it deploys to your staging server, and then I get my QA to go in, do the manual QA on the site, and they give it the thumbs up, and then what I do is I swap production and staging. That happens very quickly because it's just like a hot swap of the two websites. The advantages of this swapping is that your existing production will move back to the staging slot. So if your customers start hitting the website and you notice there's a big problem, you can always swap back, as long as another deployment from master hasn't overwritten your staging website.
Is it a DNS change or an IP address change for the swap?
The IP stay the same. I think yeah, the IP just swaps. I
don't
know how they
pretty
do
sure
it.
it's a
Ours
DNS
is just
change.
magic, right?
Because when you create a new slot, you get a new CNAME, and I'm pretty sure it just swaps the CNAME so that whatever's pointing at your production one now.
So this, just to set up a slot, it's super easy. I've already got one set up. Is deployment slots. And yeah, I don't care about those edits. And so I would just click this add slot button. If this ever loads, you'd see that there's a staging slot here. So I actually have a staging site here. And notice the title, that's all I'm going to change today. The title is different because this is the old production. I did this presentation on Wednesday for my local user group, just to test it out, coder camp. And so this, I changed the title to my coder camp IDs. All right. Now, once it's deployed to staging and you want to promote it to production, all you have to do is you go in, back to the overview, and you hit, I don't know why it's not available, but you hit the swap button. Okay, and that would automatically swap them. And we're going to do a swap today, but we're going to do a swap with a CI/CD pipeline. And that's what I'm actually going to set up today, assuming I've got time.
What does it stand for, the acronym CI?
Okay, let's actually talk about that. I was going to talk about that in the next slide. So once again, the problem with this is we've got manual QA, we've got someone manually going in and swapping them. I want to automate everything, automate all the things, right?
All the time. Sorry, just before you move ahead. So this manual layout QA, can we just make that automatic, not the production, but just layout QA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of what this is. So this is what I would call a mature CI/CD pipeline. So what CI is continuous integration. That means that all the code that goes up to your repository automatically gets built, your tests get run, you have confidence that your developers haven't broken your code before it gets merged back into master or release, depending wherever you're releasing from. So whenever your code changes, this is the symbol for BSTS, which is Visual Studio Team Systems. Visual Studio Team Systems is Microsoft source control, build, release. Now, the great thing about it is you don't have to buy into the whole pipeline. If you do buy into the whole pipeline, you get some great integrations and great advantages, but it will also build your GitHub project. And so that's what the CI part is. This is continuous integration. I'm continuously building my software. I'm continuously testing. CD is continuous deployment. So whenever these builds and tests are successful, it automatically deploys to my staging server. And then I can run automated integration tests, load tests, performance tests on my staging server. And if those pass, it can automatically get promoted to production. I could also have things like a QA sign-off or a managerial sign-off if I wanted, so I can have manual sign-offs. Okay? Any questions on that so far? So let's go in and we'll set it up.
The build test release would be for the manual QA you were saying? What's the purpose of the build test release? I missed that, sorry.
So this will build my software, it will run my automated tests, and it will replace the manual QA. You could still have a manual QA step in here if you want to. It's super flexible. Okay? And when I set it up today, because I don't have time to set up load tests and all that stuff, I'm going to set it up with a manual QA step. All right? So, now one thing I should mention about BSTS is it's free for up to 5 developers. So you can do all of this. Everything I'm hopefully going to show you today. You can do all this for free, up to 5 developers in your organization. You will get up to 250 build minutes a month. And if that's not enough for you, you can purchase a pipeline for $40 US a month. So you can, that's unlimited minutes, one build at a time.
So it's a hosted solution? VSTS?
It is hosted,
It's
yes.
a hosted solution.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to show you the build and release today. Visual Studio, actually let's just do this. Hotspot, come on.
So this BSTS is something like a managed Jenkins.
It
would replace
Jenkins.
Yeah,
it's
it would replace
it's-
Jenkins, right?
Replace.
It would do the same thing as Jenkins.
But the great thing is, like I said, it integrates with all of these things. So if your team's currently on Jenkins, you can just move over and use the pieces of VSTS that you want, and it will actually kicked off a Jenkins build.
But that's when your application is written in .NET.
Sorry?
That is when your application
No.
is written in .NET.
Anything.
No, anything.
Anything.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
supports Java or PHP and
Python?
Go, Python, Ruby, Rails. You can build. Yeah, you can build iOS mobile applications.
What about Fortran?
Only if it's Fortran.net, which actually exists.
Really? Wow.
Yes, Microsoft's big into
Is
our.
it Cobol.net too?
Alright, I'm obviously boring everybody. You're checking your emails than ever.
I'm canceling. Okay.
Okay, active. Let's try this again.
Surprising.
Yeah.
But I guess all you need is one company.
Yeah, like Microsoft's mantra with Azure and BSTS is any platform, any developer, they support it all. It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most open clouds and open development systems.
Yeah, I think in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, like what you just said,
Yeah.
cloud development, it's on the top right.
Would that
Like for
mean,
cloud development, just open development.
Yeah, open. And you'll see if they start setting this stuff up.
it's popular or?
Yeah, like most widely, like open development, like any platform, multi-platform.
Because builds take a little while, I already have a complete pipeline set up. I have a pull request here set up in GitHub. Okay, this pull request, if we look at it, all it does here, I'm changing the title from My Coder Camp Ideas, which you saw on the production website, to Global Azure Bootcamp Ideas. All right. Now you will notice down here that this BSTS build has already run. As soon as I uploaded my code and created the pull request, it got built. All my tests got run. My integration tests got run. It's green, so I have confidence that I didn't break the website with this change. My manager might not like the new title, but that's a different thing. Also notice over here, it says required. So what this is, in GitHub, in VSTS, if you're using Git in VSTS, there's something called branch policies. So I can go in and set up branch policies that say that my build must run and pass before this pull request can be merged.
And pass, that this is where the test that says the pass is defined.
All the tests have passed. Okay, so I know that this is good now, so I can merge this.
You can even have code reviewers?
I can enforce code reviewers, number of code reviewers. I can do all that. I actually prefer VSTS for that. Like I said, I'm only using GitHub today just to show you that you don't have to jump in fully, right? And because a lot of people use GitHub. Like, I do a lot of open source development on GitHub. At work, I use VSTS. In a lot of ways, I prefer VSTS. So my pull request is successfully merged. What's going to happen here is Webhook is going to kick off a build of master now. And so that's going on over in the background. But first, I'm going to show you how to set this up. Well, that's happening. Builds take about 5 minutes. Deployments take a few minutes too. And we probably don't have time. All right? So what I would do here, or what I could do here, is I could come down here and hit continuous delivery. Now this is in preview. So right now, unless you're doing a classic ASP.NET MVC application, don't use this. All right? Maybe by the time you're ready to use it, it will support everything. I found that I had to go in and change the build templates so much that it just wasn't worth it. It was much easier just to go in and create them myself. But I did, I'm surprised it's not showing up because it was yesterday. Once again, preview. But once I set up the stuff in VSTS, it actually hooked back into here And I got a complete log of deployments and swaps and all of that stuff.
Maybe you need to hit refresh logs.
Possibly. Yeah. But it's grayed out.
It's
Like the
grayed
swap's
out.
grayed out now too. So something's up. I don't know what it is. I might have messed something up when I was playing with it this morning.
What does the acronym mean, BSTS?
BSTS stands for Visual Studio Team Systems. And so basically, it's your team software. It's like Jenkins. It's like GitHub. It will manage your work items, your issues. It can manage your source code. And that's a great, like GitHub, if I want private repositories, I gotta pay for it, right? I come into BSTS for free. I get, like I said, up to 5 collaborators, unlimited private repositories, free builds, you know, and the whole system's integrated together. Whereas if I'm in GitHub, okay, I want to build this, okay, I've got to go find another service, AppVeyor, for example, to build my software. BSTS is nice, it is all integrated. Yeah?
Just one question didn't get was, where do these tests runs when you merge, getting some tests and say it's okay?
I'll show you where they run as we set it up. Okay? It runs in BSTS. Okay? So now I switch over to BSTS. This is BSTS. This is the build definition. You can see master passing Wednesday. Okay, that's obviously the old one. Okay, I would have to refresh, which I will do, but just in case it doesn't load. You can see here's my pull request build that recently happened today. And if I refresh, you'll see that it's currently building up here in queued and running. It will show you that it's currently building master. See, in progress, right? And I can go in there and I can see the exact stage that it's at. I can view all the logs of the build. So it's currently at the NuGet restore. We've been running for 3.5 minutes. You can see the NuGet restore happening here. Okay? Like I said, this works for everything. This just happens to be a .NET Core application. To set this up, super, super easy. I just come in, I hit new. I choose where my source is coming from. Once again, you can see we've got a lot of options. I can use BSTS right in this account. I can use GitHub, I can use GitHub Enterprise. There's Bitbucket. Or if you can't find what you need, there's your external Git. If you're not using Git, consider moving over. Because Git 1, right? And as you can see, it's not just Microsoft, everybody. It's what they integrate with, right? So, and it's not hard to switch over from other source code.
So, what's the learning path? High level, like 10 steps or 5 steps, like in terms of learning path.
For what, Git?
Git, yeah.
It depends where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right? If
Traditional.
I'm in the process of switching a lot of teams from a more traditional
like
Subversion or TFS type style,
that's
right?
Yeah.
And we had an afternoon of training. I set them up with a Git repository and provided them with, you know, this is the TFS term, this is the Git term, just so you've got a mental model.
Yeah.
And with just a few hiccups, they were up and running in a day.
Yeah. I'm still learning.
It's not hard. It's well integrated into Visual Studio, which is a good crutch. I recommend learning it in command line so you actually know what's going on, which is hard for a lot of Visual Studio developers. You know, they're used to, I've got this IDE, it does everything for me, right? But you kind of need to understand what's going on. Visual Studio used to be pretty bad with Git in that they mapped all the terms to Visual Studio terms like sync and stuff like that. And that gloss over what's actually happening can confuse people, right? Because you go and Google something, how do I sync in Git? You're not going to find the answers because that's not what it's called. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in fact, the other way it is very easy if you are coming from GitLab or GitHub.
Yeah.
BSTS, it's very easy, pretty easy. You don't need to use Linux command. It is mostly visual in the Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Check in, check out everything.
So again, for the clueless question, the Git thing is it like a standard of archive, right?
It's standard
in this
where you store your source code.
It's a source code versioning system.
Yeah, that people have now licensed to others.
It's free. It's open source.
It's free. Okay.
Yeah, it was originally created by the Linux team as they moved away. I think it was Perforce that they were using before, which started getting restrictions, and so they created their own new one because the existing ones at the time, CVS and some version, but the existing open source ones just didn't meet the needs of really, really large projects like that.
We used Tortoise to have free things before it was working well, but now I like the this Git.
Yeah. So, like I said, Git one. So I go to GitHub. Now I'm already authorized, and so all I have to do is just find my repository. There it is. Go web. Select. Fills in everything. And then I choose a template. Now, like I said, I can build anything here. So I could search, Go.
So are these your build environments?
This is the build definition.
Okay.
So this is the template for your build. So if I wanted to build Go, there we go.
Is there a way to build custom
Yep.
build templates?
Oh, and yeah.
So if I wanted a container that builds Python,
Oh, totally.
they probably already have it.
Yeah. And you can do Docker builds.
Yeah.
So and you can do and if you're doing Docker builds, you're doing a multi-stage Docker build.
Right.
Where your Docker container is doing your build of your final container. That's
Possible.
But it's also got this can be Linux, it can be Mac build agents.
Yeah.
And it can be Windows build agents. And so you've got Bash scripting.
Yeah.
You've got all your various make type languages.
And you can install all your dependencies. So if I'm dependent on a specific RPM package in my Linux container or my Linux build environment,
Yes.
right, I would be able to.
Yeah.
So
As
this
a
is really
three-step-
similar to Bitbucket pipelines.
Or
Circle
there,
CI.
or
Circle CI.
Circle
CI. Yeah.
So I am going to apply an ASP.NET Core template. And what you'll see, actually this is a different one. What you see is it just creates all the steps, the NuGet restore, all that stuff. I click on the top, and it fills it all in. And all you really have to, most of it's all pre-filled in. As long as you haven't deviated from the standards of whatever stack you're working in, it'll probably just build it out of the box. And then you might have to go in and tweak one or two things because, I'm using gulp instead of grunt or that sort of stuff. And so really, really easy to do. Now, the only trick here is triggers. So I want to enable continuous integration. There's my CI and continuous integration of master. So I'm always going to build any changes to master. And then I want to pull request validation. I want to build all my pull requests so I know my developers haven't broken my code. So I just enable that. And I can include or exclude branches here. So if I don't want to automatically build my release branch. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to have separate builds for, I might want a different build pipeline that automatically deploys to smaller VMs or to the dev test cloud for, just deploying dev service for developers so they can test their code, that sort of stuff. Any questions so far? Yeah?
Yeah, so for code review or as well as automation testing, can we also integrate Sonar or Selenium?
Yeah.
This kind of.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If I come back here to tasks, I'll just make this a little bit. They'll give you a standard template here, right? But I can add additional tasks in here, and you can see that it ships out of the box with a whole bunch. Worst case, you can drop down to a command line call a program, right?
Yeah.
But they've got tons of build, test, utility, all of that stuff. And if you don't find it here, you go to the Visual Studio Marketplace, somebody's probably run into this problem and created an extension already. You just add the extension for a different type of build task. And worst case, you write your own extension. Probably, in my experience, I always just drop down to the command line and run whatever command, ng build or whatever, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
These variables where you would do your your app config mapping, or
Variables in this stage are not for the app config mapping. Those would probably be in the release stage. Variables here would be maybe I've got passwords for cert signing, or like if I'm building a desktop application, I want to sign it as part of the packaging stage. Or variables are anything that you'll use in multiple tasks, right? So it could be passwords, it could be URIs that you're going to automatically publish NuGet packages to, anything like that, all right? So that's that. Let's just go back out to builds and abandon this one. Let's just see if this is built yet. Which one is this? 21-2. So it did build. And so if I actually go into this latest build, you'll see it ran for 5.5 minutes or 5.7 minutes. My tests, I only have 28 tests. It's a super small application, but that was integration and unit tests. I could plug in code coverage. And then if I didn't have it automatically triggering releases, I could trigger a release from this, but I have it automatically triggering releases. Okay, we're getting a little low on time, so I'm just going to jump over to the release tab. And if I refresh here, you should see release 5 has actually succeeded. Okay, I'll show you how to set up the release definition in a second. Notice I have a 2-stage release here. Okay, and you'll notice, if you can see it, there's a little person on here. And that's because remember I said I was going to set up a manual QA of staging, right? And so I would have my QA manager come in and bless this release, and then it would automatically get promoted to production as soon as she approved it, okay? So that happened pretty quickly while we were talking. If I go over to staging, notice when I created the staging slot, notice it's the same URL, but it just has the slot name appended to it. So if I, now will gods be good to me, if I refresh this page, there we go. So that automatically got deployed right up to my staging web server. I've done my manual testing, right? And notice it is not here. This is still production. It hasn't been touched. And so I would come in and I would approve this. I said, I've tested it. It's swapping. And now while it's swapping, it takes a minute-ish. But it is a hot swap. Like you don't have downtime. All right. I'll show you how to set up a release definition. This is even easier, right? Actually, because we're low on time, let's just go in and look at the existing release definition. Edit.
So is the session state taken care of by the framework in Azure?
What do you mean the session? Like your application session?
Yeah, correct. If your users are connected and they have some sort of session going on, maybe like a shopping cart or something.
Well, if that's the case, you should be like, if your application is like that, your state should not be on the server. Your state should be in a Redis cache or something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So don't use this design.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's savings. If you're hosting your stuff in an Azure web app, it should never be on disk. Disk can go away. These, like, with the auto scaling, like we scale up 3 servers, the user automatically goes to a new server. Their state's gone, right? So, and in Azure, like if you want to do that, Redis is probably a good option. It's super simple to use, and Redis is a first-class app, like managed application in Azure too. So I've got this, remember I said I have this set up to, first thing I would do is set up my triggers, and I just want to release the master branch. If I had a release branch, I could do that. Notice it actually knows about my branches, so because it's actually looking at my Git repository. I selected that this is released based on this build. So this is the name of the build definition we saw on the last page. And then what I did is I just added an environment. And notice, like, here's PHP, you know, we've got Java, Ruby, Python. It can do it all, right? And so I just chose the, right down here, app service deployment with a slot. And that just allows me to deploy to a slot and swap slots. But let's cancel that. That went away. So in here, if I look at the tasks, it's just super simple. It's deployed in the slot, right? And because I've hooked it up to my Azure account, it just automatically populated most of this for me. And then the next task, or the next stage in the pipeline, all this does is swap slots. So that's what's going on now because I've approved, right? So it's swapping to production. Back to the pipeline. Now, the way I set that up is here, pre-deployment conditions. So for this second stage in my deployment, I set it up, where is it? Pre-deployment approvals enabled. Where am I? It's weird, I'm not seeing stuff today. I'm an approver, all right? And I could set it up so that the users who first created the release aren't allowed to approve it. There's tons of different options. There's gates. So what gates are is automatic approvals. So I can call it to a REST API. You know, has the security scan been run? Or I can add in here additional tasks. If I didn't want to do the manual QA, I could add additional tasks for various test things. So I could do, you know, load tests on the staging server. I could do my integration tests on the staging server, and only once each of those tasks pass, then my last task is to swap to production. So we can automate the whole thing, right?
If I wanted to publish environment variables, because the app service you can have various environment variable configurations,
Yep.
right? Like my database connection strings. So in staging, I have a separate database, but in production, I have to change that. Is there a way to, in that build step, to publish environment variables to the app service?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I would.
You could easily
ignore,
script it, right? You
this swap, and that swap back. And now if I ran into problems, I can, you know, emergency, go back into Azure, hit the swap again.
Can you try that right now?
It would take a few minutes. But yeah, so if it was an emergency, I would come back here to the overview.
The CEO calls you, says, "You
Yeah.
idiot! What are you doing?"
And here it is. So, yeah, how dare you rename it to that? Swap. Oh, I didn't do it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
She missed it.
Yeah. So it's swapping in the background now.
That's weird.
Yeah, imagine that. That's the bad one. Okay, so any questions? Wow, so many questions during the I guess I answered them all. All right, if you want to get in touch with me, my contact info.
Is the requirement that you are on Azure Cloud to use this, or can you only use this feature but not use Azure? Let's say you're using
Okay, we have Microsoft people in the room,
Yeah.
but no, you can actually deploy to AWS. You can deploy to your own servers.
Using this
Yeah, like
feature
if I went to, if I go to the marketplace, like Microsoft's not going to ship the AWS templates in BSTS. They want you to use Azure, right?
But in the marketplace, somebody's probably written a cloud formation.
Yeah. So if I go to visualstudio.com, this is where you should start for a lot of these things. And then I go to marketplace. I can get team services extensions. So notice we got like things like, and these are featured by Microsoft, so they're blessed. We've got AWS. We've got Octopus. You know, and even if all those things don't work out for you, they've got, I think it's called Terraform, which is a cloud agnostic deployment.
So if you're doing OpenStack or even VMware on-prem, you could still use this and deploy back.
Yeah, Docker, big time, if you're moving in that direction. All right. Any questions? Well, thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Rob. Food's here, so I'm sure you guys are hungry. There are turkey, ham, and veggie options. I know we have 2 veggies, so we'll let those guys get veggies first. And if anybody else needs veggie, let me know. Please take 1 box to start. So in the box will be a sub, chips, cookie, and there are drinks out there. There's different kinds of pops and drinks, different types of water. There's more water over here. There's more coffee. If you need to use the washroom, please go ahead. There's also a hand sanitizer outside if you want to sanitize your hands as well. You're welcome to eat in here. You're welcome to eat out there. If you can find a spot, you're welcome to go outside. It's really nice. It's 12 degrees outside. You can spread out. We will reconvene at 1:30. 1:30, I believe, is the next session. So please try to be back in this room by 1:30. Yeah, and we're good to go. So enjoy.